So when drawing, I used to focus on details way too early. And this actually hindered my art progression for a very long time. Because the problem about zooming in is you're not really focused on the big shapes rather than the small shapes. Because focusing on the big shapes is something that I am very big on. It's something that really, really improved my drawing skills. Because when you are zoomed in, you tend to not see the proportions all that well. So, and the other thing about zooming in is you spend so much time on details, and by the time you actually take a step back and look at your drawing, you realize that, okay, now some things are off, but then you're not going to be very keen to change it because you've already spent all this time on the details, because adding details takes quite a long time. But if you start with the big shapes, those are very easy to change. You're zoomed out and you're just focusing on the overall primitive shapes of your design. So you can easily move things around to make it, or rather to make sure that the proportions look correct. And this stage, you need to spend as much time as you can in this stage of just being zoomed out and then getting the proportions right. And what helps for me is the fact that this is actually my favorite part of drawing, because I'm not committed to anything. I can be loose and I can just spend as much time as I need to, just making sure that my figure looks right before zooming into the details. And even when I start zooming into the details, I go in increments. I will zoom in a little bit, and then still, while it is, even when adding the details, I'm still following this method of big shapes to small shapes. So I'm taking my time, zooming in slowly and slowly and slowly, and until I get to the really, really fine details that I need to add. So this really, really helps. I highly recommend it. I highly recommend that you don't worry about the details. That can come later. The most important part is the big shapes. I'm sure you've heard a lot of professionals talking about this idea of focusing on your silhouette. Making sure that your silhouette reads correctly. And I really agree with this. And I remember, I think it was Hardy Fowler. Who said, if something looks good just as a silhouette, it's already cool. It's already cool. So when you add more details, it's just gonna enhance the coolness of whatever it is you're creating. But if the big shape doesn't look right, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter how much details you add. You won't be able to save your drawing. That's just polishing a turd, as they say. So I highly, highly recommend staying zoomed out while you're drawing, and then just take your time, stay there. And the other thing that might help is just doing thumbnails, because with thumbnails there are no details. You're just focusing on the overall shape of whatever it is you're creating. Thumbnails are a great way of making sure that you get your shapes looking correct. And you can do a bunch of iterations, try different designs. Thumbnails is it's a very cool skill that when I started incorporating it into my workflow, it's been very, very beneficiary. So I highly recommend thumbnailing as well. So maybe think about that. Think about maybe before jumping into your final illustration, do a couple of thumbnails, Take your time. Don't be in a hurry to get to the finish line, because that is my biggest problem. That was my biggest problem for a very long time. I was always rushing to get to the finish line because that's where my focus was. But now the getting to the finish line is great, but for me it's really about the whole progression of whatever it is I'm creating. Just the process of creating something. Hence I'm saying that the early stages for me is my favorite. Just the exploration, trying different things, moving things around. That's my favorite part of creating an illustration. So yeah, enjoy the process. Don't rush to the finish line, because if you're not enjoying the process and you just rush into it, you're not really enjoying drawing. You just want to see the output. And that, to me, that is just not a great way of creating art. If you're not enjoying what you're doing, why are you doing it, right? So you really need to enjoy the actual process of creating something. Otherwise, you might as well just be, typing some prompts and having some generator generate some AI slop. So yeah, enjoy the process, take your time, and have fun with it. But stay zoomed out as much as you can. Stay zoomed out as much as you can, and I promise you that will result in a much better outcome.
Bit by bit, creative imagination began with a new art form. Makes me feel I belong to something.
But yeah, this is just a quick tip I wanted to share with you guys today. Thank you for sticking around, watching my video. And yeah, enjoy the rest of the video, and I will catch you next time. Cheers.